Hey everyone, it's Chris. This is episode 7 of my Magician's Overview. This time dissecting episodes 8 through 10 of Season 2. You can find the previous episodes linked in the description. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any of my future videos, and click that notification icon to join the notification squad and be the first to know when something new drops. Warning, there may be spoilers ahead, since I discuss what happens in the TV show and compare it to the book, and sometimes that reveals things down the road or changes in the show that might actually spoil things for you in the future. So if you don't want to see that, now's the time to stop the video. Okay, as I said before, hopefully everyone knows the drill by now, so let's just get into it. Starting with episode 8, we have Complications. So, Julia losing her shade. It wasn't in the books, but it is an interesting way to make her character a bit more like the book version. Although she didn't have her shade removed, the things she went through deadened her, I guess you could say. But she is still basically good, just not emotional. And the whole thing with her killing the forest is a betrayal of one of the key aspects of her character. She is actually a friend of the trees in Fillory, the only one they really respect and talk to, so I am not a fan of this. You know, as I've mentioned before, in the novels, Julia becomes one of the queens of Fillory, so this whole thing was just, a bit odd. Next up, we have The Deal. This was equal parts great and annoying to me, although I loved the fact that Penny could sense something was off with Q. Again, a massive fan of what they are doing with Penny in this show. But for real though, Penny needs to button his shirt. This whole thread with Friar Joseph is pretty great though, and it gives us a pretty compelling story arc to play with going forward. And I did like that they gave us some table stakes with Quentin and Alice and their peculiar relationship. Oh, and Penny getting choked out by Alice was rad, so that was a great ending to that little piece. And lastly, we have Comatose Eliot. This was kind of silly and not at all in the novels. It feels kind of crappy that they have weakened his character like this. Once he is in Fillory, Eliot quickly becomes the king Fillory needs and takes it seriously. That being said, I did like the cinematic moment of the transfer of consciousness from his golem to his real body that we saw in this episode, so fantastic. Okay, episode 9. First off, we're going to talk about Brownouts. So, magic dying was in the novels, but not like this. The storyline was much more weird and far out than what you see in the show, if you can believe that. It has to do with old gods who glow blue, like Smurfs, who created magic, and basically a magic sewer that they live in. It's just all very odd. So, I understand why they wanted to change that particular part of the story a little bit. Next up, we have The Duel. This was in the novels, but not at all in the same way. I'm unsure at this point how I feel about it. In the novels, Eliot used magic to win the duel, just like he did in the show, but it was his own magic, a testament to his growth as a magician and as a human being, that he volunteered to fight and then uses his knowledge and training to fight and win. There is a serious undercurrent of cheating in the show whenever there is a serious problem, from Q using a spell to shoot arrows straight instead of actually learning how to shoot a bow and arrow, to Eliot learning to use the sword from a spell. It's all just kind of irritating to me, so not a fan. However, I am a fan of Magicians the Musical. I mean, how could you not love this? I wish they would have shown the Fillorians kind of freaking out a bit that they were singing for no reason. This was probably the only thing about the show's version of the duel that I preferred to the books. Walking up in full chorus is freaking awesome. Also, the reactions of the Lorians to the singing was fantastic. So, great job there all around. And next we have Reynard and his son. I mean, I don't even understand why the storyline is in the show to begin with. It bothers me that they are muddying everything up with these storylines. I'm just going to move on, but I do not like this. Do not want. Please stop. Next up, we have the Fairies. This wasn't in the original narrative either. Magic was saved by the magicians after going on a quest, not by bargaining with the fairies. Again, it just feels like they're removing the agency of the characters, which is sad to me. It is an interesting twist to the story. I would have rather seen them maybe change it so where they go on the quest to fix magic and really can't, like, they can't either, they're stopped, something's missing, and then they have to turn to the fairies as their last resort because they already tried to do it themselves, as opposed to just, ooh, fairies. But, I digress. Julia the Maniac. I hate this. I hate the entire idea of it. It is completely anathema to me. It is 100% a betrayal of who her character is in the novels and who she should become. To the point of sacrificing Q just to have a chance at Reynard, it's just infuriating. I can't say anything else about it. And lastly, we have Alice is beamed up. This was a nice way to end the episode, and a great way to set Alice's story back on the correct course, if you will, given how important the things she sees, learns, and does while traveling, quote unquote, are to the overall story. So fantastic way to give us a little interlude that was new and interesting, but then also end with her doing the things she needs to do to progress the story down the road. Okay, and finally, episode 10. We're going to start off with Julia, the knowledge student. While there are aspects I don't like about the new way they are handling Julia's story, I did love them touching on her loop history and showing what her discipline would have been, and it being the same one that Fogg had. It was just a nice touch and something that was completely absent in the books. Speaking of time loops, next up we have the timelines. I have been waiting for this, hoping that they would do a decent job of incorporating the previous moments in the lives of each of our characters into the present story. Honestly, I am surprised they took this long to do it, but now that they have, it's nice to see that they are doing it justice, and also not in the novels. But having Julia and Fogg casting at the same time was just rad. Next up, we have Penny, the novice. While Penny, working for the librarians, is in the novels, we meet him much later. While Penny, working for the librarians, is in the novel, we meet him again much later after he has risen to an upper tier of authority and power in the Order. So we don't see any of his time as a novice, what he was tasked to do, etc. Working this into the show is another great moment for his character to develop and mature, so I'm a fan. Speaking of the library and the Order, Trouble in the Library. I really like that they are making good use of the library and the Order of the librarians. They are basically just mentioned in the novels, with the only librarian we really ever spend time with being Penny. Having intrigue and stakes being applied to the place makes a lot of sense. They established in the novels that the library is the total sum of all magical knowledge, as well as knowledge associated with magic, which is why you saw the volumes dedicated to each member of the Scooby Gang. So, big fan of them playing this up in the show. And finally, we have Dragons and the Underworld. I was wondering how they were going to work this in, and while it feels a little odd, what with them being the gatekeepers of the Underworld, it is nice that they are being introduced this early into the show. The Underworld makes an appearance in the novels, as do dragons, but it is conjunction with events that happen in Fillory during the quest to restore magic, and not in relation to a shade being lost. Interestingly enough, it is in the Underworld that we get a glimpse of Julia's greater destiny as well. It's really the jumping off point for the most interesting part of Julia's story. So it's kind of a little bit of anticipation on my part to see what they're going to do there. And hopefully it's awesome. Okay, folks, that is it for this video. There weren't as many big ticket items to talk about this time, so flew through a bit faster. Very exciting. We are one recap video away from the end of Season 2, which means the beginning of Season 3 recap videos. And we are almost caught up. What that means practically is once we are finished with Season 3 recap videos, I am planning on doing some deep dive videos to talk more about aspects of the story, history, things like that, that might not actually make it into the show. Like the other magic schools, because there are magic schools in England and Russia and places like that. So much like Harry Potter. So I'll be talking about those coming up soon. And anything you would like to know in that vein, something that's touched on in the show or is inferred and you would like to know more about it, just put it in the comments. Let me know, and I will do my best to answer them in a video like this or just like a talking head video. So that is it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down so I can know how I'm doing. As always, I am your friend and literature whisperer, Chris, and I will see you again on Monday. Take it easy.